This is the show about the people who create, amplify, and influence our culture and how they do it. Want to capture lightning in a bottle? Want your content to spread like wildfire? I'm Ben Kaplan, and let's break the internet. Welcome to Break the Internet. I'm chatting with Sarah Laming. Her accounts are A Home to Make You Smile, prolific on Instagram, 1.2 million followers, but also you're on a lot of other platforms as well. And I think, Sarah, one thing that's really interesting about how you started posting in October 2019. You were not a millennial or Generation Z who was a sort of native on these platforms. It was past your 50th birthday. And look at you now, you're breaking the internet. You have, views that regularly go viral, posts or reels or other things like that. So what was it like to start? And did you ever imagine that this is what you'd be doing full time now?
Ben, I could never have imagined that I'd be doing this full time. And I could never have imagined how Instagram particularly, which is where I began, would give me such a huge platform to such a mammoth change in my life after 50, where I started in October 2019. My kids were in their late teens and they really didn't need me at home anymore. I'd kind of not really gone back to work for quite a long time. I'd done an interior design course, interior decorating. I'd done our house. I'd helped friends. But I was at a real point of, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Shall I get a job? What am I going to do? And a friend of mine who'd become a social media manager just said, well, why don't you start by posting some of your gorgeous house on Instagram? And I did. And the interiors community is a massive community on Instagram. I don't know if you know it, but it's huge. And in the day, in 2019, when we were still on posts and hashtags were a thing, there were a lot of interiors hashtags that were challenges, and they'd give you prompts every day so that you could join in and give you a reason to post. And they'd have winners and daily winners, monthly winners, and huge communities. So I immediately fell into a community of interiors content creators. And I think that gives you the courage. And there were people of many different ages there, actually. We go from really young creators to people who are older than me. So you can feel quite at home, whatever you are and whoever you are, wherever you are. And that was kind of where it all began.
Well, and did you start out, were you doing some of these challenges yourself and posting them? Or how do you sort of become part of the community? When did you have your first post, and what was it where it really got some major views and kind of surprised you and said, wow, that's quite a lot of people. That can go quite far. Where did it start? How did you get started, and what were you creating at the beginning?
Yeah, so I was literally, so I began, I can remember the exact date I began on Instagram, because it was October the 1st, 2019. And it was the first day of a month. And a lot of the interiors challenges ran across a month. So they would give you a prompt for day 1, prompt for day 2, all the way to day 30. And I just decided to myself that I was going to commit to 30 days of these prompts.
What's an example of this? Because this is sort of the interior styling or interior decorating community. What would be a typical, can you remember what one of those original prompts were that you, I guess you would design something to respond to it?
Yeah, so they were really fun. So there was 2 different challenges that everyone did. You did My House This Month or Story of My Home. And they were different prompts. So one prompt might be a Monday morning and it might be blooming marvelous. So that would give you an opportunity to show flowers on a table or a piece of wallpaper that was floral, or you could interpret it in any way. And everybody did. Everyone brought their own personal self to these prompts. Or there might be another one I can remember was This Old Thing. So you had a chance to interpret that, with something old or vintage or antique, or just an old husband in the background. Do you know what I mean? You could do anything.
Okay.
And have they were fun, and and every day there would be a winner. And I think in that first month of October, I won one day the Story of My Home prompt. So So then they posted your picture on their account and people came and followed you. And it was a really amazing community at the time.
And what changed from that? You did all these, you responded to all these challenges. You won one in your first 30 days, which is exciting. But not a lot of people necessarily like grow, accounts with over 1 million followers on Instagram after that. So what was the next step for you? What changed there? Was there something where it was like, hey, I can do more than just respond to prompts?
Yeah, so then I think that every picture, so it was all photos then. And so I realized that what I loved doing with my photos was telling a story through them. So where lots of interiors account, you would just post a corner. I always styled it so that you felt a bit of the person behind that corner or the story. And I grew, so I looked it all up for you. I grew in that first year and a half from October 2019 through all our lockdowns, through the pandemic, to October 2019, 2020, to sort of about June 2021, I gained 17,000 followers. So I'd done well in a year and a half, but it was 17,000 followers.
I see. First year and a half. And what about it? Was that the distinguishing factor? I mean, when you look at, your content and I've looked at some of them, and you have, ones that are, I mean, now we're fast forwarding a little bit, but like, 12 months through my window, 51 million views of that video, or the breeze, the trees, the sunshine, the sparkles, 35.8 million. When you see like really massive numbers, what is it about what you post that strikes a chord? And if you can think back to that earlier time period, was it just that a story of the person that was there? Because largely what this is like you see a very lovely living room, but that doesn't necessarily shout out to you like, oh my God, I have to share this really lovely living room. It's a nice living room. It looks beautiful, looks quite homey, but that doesn't strike me as viral content yet. So what is it about it? Break us through how this works and how you thought about it and what makes your content special.
Okay, so I think the first thing that made my account grow was Reels. So the day Instagram put Reels on our accounts, I did one. And it made me realize that if you wanted to now grow on Instagram, then you were going to have to do Reels. And they were difficult at first because people didn't want them. So most of the people who were on Instagram looking at your content still wanted photographs. But we knew that Instagram was going to promote Reels. So that was the first thing. I got on that Reels trend early.
Before. So it was an opportunity to build and it was being prioritized if you could do it early.
Yeah. And the second thing I did with Reels from that early time was the ones that were being done were very instructive, as you can imagine, particularly interiors content creators. It was loud, trendy music.
It's like step 1, take your flowers and arrange them this way. Step 2, adjust your the background to frame the flower. I'm making this up, but it was literally very prescriptive.
Or very click, here's my room before, click, here's my room painted and styled. It was full of DIYs, transitions, before and afters. And my house has developed so slowly that I could never do that. And 2, I just didn't like it.
Why didn't you like it? Why? That was because most people probably when they're doing this, you tend to like look at what other people are doing. This seems like the successful status quo. You kind of try to do something like it, but put your unique spin on it. So maybe it would be a normal way to go about it. So why did you say like, I just don't like it? First of all, why did you notice that?
Well, one, I just didn't enjoy watch it. I didn't enjoy particularly watching them. I didn't enjoy the music, and it wasn't me. I knew that I was never going to, that was not me. Me was telling a story about my house through and evoking emotions, which is what my house is about. So I started playing much more with the idea of quiet reels and quiet video, and music that was not obviously trending at the time. And I think my first few reels that I created were very whimsical, and there would be sort of a lampshade that would move as you went into a room through an open door.
So it was sort of it seems when you say a lampshade that moves and they were kind of whimsical, it was like some little action that suggested a story or something else or something to like, I almost say like notice or observe, or something that was different than was less of like before, after, boom, boom, in your face, ta-da, and more of like something that was a little bit more like you notice things, something for people that have like a discerning eye, something else, something a little bit like a nice touch.
Yeah, it was definitely that. And very much about noticing those little things in life that you didn't necessarily notice, that had the actual ability set to the right music to give you a really big emotional punch. So I decided to go, as opposed to the instructive reels that were being done at the time, like here we are, let's paint a ceiling white, to this content that really tried to touch people emotionally. And I think my house and the way I decorate it, and then my windows, where you could get the seasons changing or the weather or a storm, and the juxtaposition of a storm outside of my windows with candles in 2020 was quite new, and that reel went totally crazy. So it was taking sort of interiors content from being instructive to emotional, which people hadn't done.
Do you think that works in any type of content, or do you think there's something about interior design specifically where people who are interested in it do, I don't know, either it's notice the details, pay attention to a detail that a run-of-the-mill person might not pay attention to, or they, if you're interested in that, you're interested in how a room makes you feel in a way that a person that just doesn't think about that just kind of enters a room and it's great and doesn't appreciate that. Do you think there's something specific to the subject, or do you think we all should just be like more storytellers no matter what the content topic is?
So I think that the niche that my content has become has moved away from being interior design, although people like my interiors and enjoy them, but it's become about an emotion that I give them. So they like the house and they say it reminds them of Miss Honeywell's house or whatever, that whimsical feel. And yet they say that every 7-second video they get in from their day at work or their stress or the anxieties around them, and they get a moment of calm. So they see this house and me, the sense of the person that lingers in it, and the outside that comes into it, and that all comes together to create a moment which is just peace, calm.
And do you try to, when you create a piece of content, I mean, are you having that insight now? Do you try to think like, I don't know, how do I show the chaos of all of this and then have this moment of calm? Do you try to like construct that or build that, or how do you think about that? Or is it just things you notice around your house, you're going about your day, and you notice something that you pay attention to, and so that gives you an idea? Where does the inspiration come from?
Yeah, so I spend hours and hours, probably the same amount of time as other interiors content creators spend painting a room. I will literally spend with my camera waiting. I know the exact time of day where the light comes in at the exact moment to create the sparkles that come across the sofa. Or I wait for the breeze. Everyone says your house is always so breezy. Well, it's not, but I'm waiting for days and days to create the content when that breeze flows through my house. So I know the content I need to create to evoke these feelings, and then I spend hours waiting for it. And then also the music that it gets put to and edited to creates that whole, I think.
How do those other pieces contribute to the whole and to the feeling and the sense of calm to see this?
Yeah, so I think that what I try to bring in is I make it personal. So I kind of give a sense of myself. So there's a book left lingering on the couch There's a cup of tea on the sofa. There's a flap of a curtain. So you get the sense of the person behind the account without actually seeing them, although I do make myself pop into it a bit more now. So I think what I try and do is make it personal without it being all about me. So it gives people a sense of the person. And I also think that sometimes people kind of can see themselves in it. Like for that 7 seconds, there's an emotional connection to it where you're almost in it.
And when did you start seeing this? So you kind of jumped on the Reels trend. You didn't like the existing content that was sort of either prescriptive or before or after.
No.
You had this idea to give more of a feeling or more of a storytelling. And when did you start seeing results? I know you first went from like kind of 17,000 people in a year and a half, which is solid, but not like unbelievable. But solid. When did it start like taking off into something more? What started happening?
Yeah, so as those kind of reels began, you could see them gaining traction. So in that, from June, whatever it was, 2021 to June 2022, I posted reels of my windows and of feelings around that, curtains flapping and books, always edited to music, so it fitted perfectly. And I grew that year to 435,000 followers. So in a year, I grew, over 400,000 followers.
And did you notice the response right away? Did you know, like, this content, did you get a sense it would work? Or did it take a while for people to kind of get what it was?
It took a while when people didn't particularly like reels, but I kept persevering. And then I could see the reels that people liked. And then I started creating more of them. And then my account was full of those kind of reels. So people who came from them liked those kind of reels. So then they engaged with them. And then I did more. And then it grew. And it was just this circle of me creating content that people liked, that went viral. So it built slowly. So I used to get the odd million reel, and now I get a lot more of them. And as you said, that.
So did you find yourself, it sounds like, more focusing in over time on a more focused type of content, as opposed to being like, I've got to balance this with like, I have all of these, or did you do other types of content to say, now I'm going to talk in front of the camera just to give a sense of the person there, or no, I want to stay focused on this one very specific thing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I don't do other content on my grid now. I literally am focused on that. And but it has kind of changed over the time, although you probably wouldn't know it if you saw it. It's just slowly manifested itself. Like the music changed a bit.
And why? Take us through what did it change? Was it just to keep it interesting for you, or did you notice something else, or you had to evolve in some way?
I think I probably had to evolve, and I began with it. I've worked out that clips of 4 or 5 clips of around my house now, set to music, or of a window in autumn or over the seasons, people like more of the clips. So if I make a 7-second video, which clips 4 times within it, 8 second, people like that. Showing cut to the music, so it fits.
I see. So it fits a little bit, because I noticed you are cutting on. I mean, I think you had in one of your most popular ones that I think I was watching and listening to, it was like Every Breath You Take, or something I think recognizable, and it has a certain beat cadence, and then the cuts were happening to the music. And you just said over time people liked the rhythmic quality of all of this, added something to the kind of feeling, so you watched it and kind of felt good while you watched it.
I guess so. And that's what I always have done, is always made sure that my editing, although it wasn't flashy editing, was spot on. So if it was being done to music, the music fitted totally and utterly. If the curtains danced, they danced in time to the beat. If the beat changes, then you change to the room. I would never take a piece of music and just put a video to it. It takes me 2 days to edit that all those tiny little things together.
And are you doing this all yourself, or has this grown to a part where you need more help doing all of this? And I don't know if that's difficult, because is the whole stage your house? So you'd have to have a lot of people in your house to do this if you were to get help to do this.
No, I do it all myself. I all myself. I have my family help me, so they are my biggest critics and biggest, and they'll help me get that beat right when I'm struggling or whatever. They'll give me input, but it's me. Yeah.
Do you have, I know you know your house very well. You know how the light comes in. You wait for something, but is your house a constant set? Is everything designed to, perform on Instagram, or is it just your house anymore? And how do you manage that and think about that? Do you have to be constantly like tidy in this place? How do you manage and do all of that?
So particular bits of my house frequently look nice, but not all of it. So my kids are teenagers or in their 20s now, but their friends come in and they look at that room. They go, is this the Instagram house? Because it's not. It's a normal house, and it gets messy and it gets left unstyled, and it's just normal. But and there's only very particular parts I show. I mean, if you saw around the rest of it, there are parts which are still lovely, but they wouldn't work on Instagram anymore. And there are parts that just aren't decorated as nicely or aren't as nice. But yeah, there's the sets that I use, which are those windows that you see, are not always as beautiful as that. And I'm not precious. And I think that's kind of part of what people like about my account is it's kind of perfectly imperfect. It's not precious. It's comfortable. People say, and I think that's my age thing as well, you remind me of, your house reminds me of my mum, or it reminds me of summers growing up with my granny, or it's really nostalgic. And I think that sort of sense of it's not a perfect home, it's just a home with feeling and seasons and those kind of things help.
And I think, you, of course, if you were going to give this a name, an appropriate name would be the name of your book coming out, which is Relaxed Maximalism. And what role do you think, if you had to, I don't know, assign a value to contributing to your success? Is it that you just have a good eye for style, that you make things that people like? How much of it is that you have a good sense of sort of feeling, emotion, something else that goes beyond style? How much of it is it just you're authentic? I know you've said that, you felt like the other types of content in the space didn't really represent you. This represents you better, so it's authentic. How much of it is just luck, that you caught on at the right time when reels were coming out and you were able to grow, and now you have a big follower count, and how much do you credit all of those things, whether you're like your taste, you just have good taste, or luck, or authenticity, or storytelling? What's contributing?
So I think, like you said, I think when anything goes viral, like my account, is a combination of a lot of things, isn't it? And I think I created a niche which felt specific but has a universal appeal. And I deliver on the promise of that niche with every single video I make. So if you come to my account, the promise of what you're going to expect is there. I think my style is unique. I think I'm also really lucky because I have English seasons out of my window, and I can cover them all off because I have a tree that goes beautifully orange in autumn. We get snow very rarely, but we get storms.
But are you having to plan content out like a year at a time to be like, I'm waiting on this one until all the seasons change to literally like come to fruition, this thing? Or do you have a stockpile and then you're like, oh, I can pull this clip here and this clip here, and I'm going to go pull from my seasonal library? Or do you literally wait a year for a certain?
No, I pull from a seasonal library. So when it's good, when those content days are good, I create a lot of content, because they don't come around all the time, because I am so dependent on light and weather, which is why ads are difficult, because well, they're not difficult, but I always say to people, they'll take longer, because if you want what I've got, you need to wait for the sun or the wind or whatever. I can't just think I'm going to create content today and this will be it.
In your Reels and TikToks, they've been viewed over 250 million times. Was there a breakout moment that you can remember where you sort of got into these really more astronomical numbers in terms of some of your top posts that would get tens of millions of views, or if there was a post or a reel or something else? When did you kind of break through to that level?
So I think in September 2021, I got my first million viewed reel, which was Seasons Through My Window to Should I Spend the Day With You. We went to, and I realized people like that. And then in about February 2022, I did The Storm Through My Window with Candles that got 35 million views, and the Oscars liked it. And that was, it was then. So it kind of built from September to that February. And then I got that kind of stormy window, and people writing to me saying, I watch this video every time I'm feeling down. I have it on repeat.
What is it about that makes that your greatest hit and something that somehow affects people in that way? Like, break down that specific video. In the video version of this, we can see it, but it's like, it's things are changing across the seasons, across like the 12 months of the year. It's out one window. And what is it that makes that video special?
Being able to see the seasons change. I think people like weather, people like seasons, people like the emotions that come with time changing over a year and watching all of that in one space. So that's part of it. People love it, particularly people who live in countries that don't have seasons. It's massive. I think that with each of those, there's a sense of a moment within each of those tiny little clips. Also, that music was the music that was going to be the end of year, where everyone put their 12 months of the year music to it. And I picked that up when I had 3,000, it had been used 3,000 times. And I think it went on to have 1 million.
I see. So the music you knew was it was early on, but it was going to start trending.
I knew that music was going to trend. You could tell as soon as you saw it that was going to be the music that everyone put their year review to. So I did it with my seasons quickly.
I see, quickly, and that was important to be early enough in the trend, but it was coming that you could sort of benefit from it.
Yeah, it was coming. It was ahead of it. And it wasn't people, it was seasons. So it was different.
It was different than everything else. And how do you think about, I mean, you've done obviously very well on Reels, but TikTok is growing fast, not at the same total follower count, but growing. How do you approach Reels or TikTok differently? Do you think about it differently? Is it the same, or is there a subtle difference?
I don't post on TikTok as much. One, because I think that it's really interesting. I'm sure it is one of those in my head. It can't really be true. But I always think that Instagram knows when I'm going to be friends with TikTok, and it doesn't like it.
Okay.
And so it kind of reduces my engagement. But when I am on TikTok, I kind of love the freshness. So quite a lot of it's like everyone on Instagram will say, when you're on TikTok, the music, you get a hint of the music that's going to come to Instagram. I find TikTok gave me the newer ideas because it was fun and funky, and I wasn't so scared to post. Like, I think with my Instagram following now, sometimes I get frozen with fear of this.
You mean like everything has to be, I mean, part of your thing was it was sort of like perfectly imperfect, but then you get known for this thing and you got to like deliver on it. And if you do one that doesn't like deliver on this promise, or sometimes people, you're worried about it.
I'm really worried about it. Yeah. And I really feel the pressure on Instagram of creating, as you said, perfect now. And I don't feel that pressure on TikTok. So I kind of have more fun with TikTok. And I think that influences my Instagram, and it really helps.
Can you
my
use
Instagram
it then as like a trial ground experiment? If something works really well there, then you're like, oh, I can bring this over. I mean, we've had other people on the show before who use different platforms that have different qualities as their like testing ground to figure out what works, and then use it on their main account.
Yeah, and I learned from TikTok. Yeah, exactly. So I use it to experiment. I have less fear, and I also learned from it because it was different, and things were done differently on TikTok. And it's fun, TikTok, whereas I think Instagram is kind of less fun. It's more proper, isn't it? Not proper, more styled and designed as an app, Instagram, whereas TikTok.
And how do you keep it? Because I know a lot of either experienced content creators, influencers, new ones who find it hard to keep things fresh. And in some ways, they have a much bigger canvas than you do, because your canvas is your home, your house. So how do you, 5 years into this now, that means you've been through the seasons 5 times, right? You've done these kind of things. How do you keep finding new angles, new freshness, new approaches, something that's different? Are you tempted to just post the one from 3 years ago and post it now again? Maybe people won't notice your new followers. Like, how do you keep things fresh? And what advice do you have to others to keep things fresh?
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting question. And I think you've kind of nailed it for me, which is my account is so niche, and I have gone through all the seasons, and I do only have 4 sets, that it is really difficult to create that freshness. And I guess the way in which I have been doing it is, like I said, I used to have kind of many more videos with just one clip. Now I definitely edit 4 or 5 together to change it. And the music, you can create freshness. So taking TikTok, the viral TikTok dances that are all over TikTok, bringing them to Instagram and making your curtains or your books do the dance, which nobody else does, gives you a kind of freshness in that. It's kind of fun.
So you'll identify a trend on TikTok or something else and almost like bring it into this context that isn't so trend driven, and make it. And what will you do? You'll make the curtains kind of move to the beat of this dance or something like that.
Yeah, exactly that. Like the big one, if you remember when David Beckham and Victoria Beckham did their whole Islands in the Stream last year. And everyone was dancing to it, and I was just like, oh, that would be amazing if the curtains were David and Victoria Beckham and the book. And so I just would interpret what's around on those viral TikToks to my house.
Do you think does what you do, does it translate all over the world? What is your response? Is it a very, would you say, British sensibility on this? And obviously you've been a very prolific content creator and followers in the UK, but does it translate over the world? Do you notice cultural differences in how people respond? What have you observed?
It is a massively global account. I have followers everywhere, and I really love that about my account. And I think they are drawn to the Britishness of it. So I think that helps. But it's a very happy account. So I never really get negative comments on it. I mean, occasionally you get those kind of trolls who just want to go through Instagram writing not very kind things to people. But that is it.
And you would think a good name for an account, I mean, a home, is it a home to make you smile? And you don't really want to come with frowns around that kind of account, right? That defeats the purpose of it. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, not nice. But the only time that there's been controversy, and I kind of knew it when I took the video, I knew it would be controversial, but I didn't have time because, as I said, the moment was just right. Like it was autumn and the leaves were falling outside my window and the dog was sitting in the perfect position on the window, on the seat. So I knew I had to create my content there. So I got on the sofa with my trainers on. And that is the only time that I've had masses of debate on my Instagram account about whether I should have had my shoes
On
on
the
the sofa.
specifically, and people.
Yeah, yeah. And culturally, of course, around the world, particularly shoes in the house, let alone on the sofa.
And did you ever think, like, I mean, obviously engagement plays a role in and engaging back with your audience. Was that a net positive to have a bit of controversy and people discussing it? You're going to increase a lot of comments and things like that. How did that work? And also, how do you think about like responding to your audience? How much of a role does that play in trying to give people feedback if they reach out to you?
Yeah. So, well, I didn't like that. I didn't like the negativity on it. And actually, I'm really lucky with my engagement. So I didn't feel like I needed to have that controversy in it. But I think my followers are so important to me. And people say, I do try to reply as many comments as possible. And I reply to loads of DMs that I get from people too, because usually they're saying, thank you. And usually they're saying, you just made me have a moment's peace, or you've made me feel better. Thank you. Or I'm so happy that you posted again today. So I really value every single, I don't know. I feel really grateful.
And how many typical like comments or DMs or other things do you get? And how much time do you spend responding to those on a I don't know, a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah, so when I post, I spend a lot of time responding that day. So my day might get set up, and then after that, it does get less. So, but yeah, I probably spend an hour or so a day responding to comments and DMs and those sorts of things.
How is it now with, I don't know, collaborations, brand partnerships? You have a big audience. How do you navigate all of that? I don't know, someone writes you up and says, can you just, stick this bottle of soap right there on the corner of your couch? Just put it there. Just stick it over there. But like, when you have an account where everything is like a little detail, you're paying attention to every little thing, you're leaving that book open to suggest a story, and someone wants to pay you maybe a significant amount of money to just like stick that bottle right there. How do you navigate all of that?
Well, so I'm much better. I guess that's always the same. I'm much better at creating content than navigating brand deals. So I have an agent who does some of it, but she doesn't do all of it. We split it. And I think from the beginning of my account, I've been utterly clear that I would only work with brands that genuinely fitted into my account. So that bottle of soap would have to be a bottle of soap that I wanted. And I also think that has helped my account to grow, because I never really accepted PR products. I do occasionally. And I only am very, very cautious with the advertising I do. So I am not flooding my account ever with brand deals and brands.
What's the largest amount of money you've turned down for something that didn't fit?
Probably a few £1,000 for not mass. But also, I guess if you're doing it at once, that would be the case. But there are an awful lot of things that I just don't do, if you see what I mean, and I don't take. So lots of little things that add up.
What else do you have? Could you share that you've had to learn how to navigate just having a bigger account, bigger number of followers? What other challenges, issues, opportunities, difficulties come with that you've had to navigate since, reaching, tens of millions of views on an individual reel, let's say?
Yeah, well, imposter syndrome, that's with me all the time. The pressure to constantly create and to create content that is as good as the last piece of content. And I don't want to let people down who are following me. I feel like, and then I think a lot of what I sit and talk about at home a lot with my husband is, where do we go from here? Like, how sustainable is an Instagram account what do I do with it? So I'm glad I wrote the book, because that was an incredible opportunity that came this way through Instagram. But I also think a lot about what else I should be doing.
Where might you go? I mean, do you think about breaking out of the walls of your home and doing other things and capturing other moments? Do you think about other trips and moments like that, or do you think about doing something different? Like what you hope you'd be doing in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I do think I should break out my home, and I should do that more in my stories, at least to start. And well, I'd love a brand. I mean, I don't know what I say that, but I don't really know how I'd start. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to be creating my own brand, not relying on other people's brands. And I guess interior soft furnishings, that type of thing would be a natural fit with what I do. So I don't know. It is our eternal conversation, and I cannot pin down what that would be.
And finally, what is your advice for others who maybe have an idea, have a niche, have something they'd like to do, but don't fit the typical influencer or content creator, millennial or Gen Z mold? What is your advice for maybe it's the older content creator, someone else that just has a unique point of view that says, I kind of want to do this, but I just look around and I don't see people who either look like me or want to post like what I post or all of that. What is your advice for them?
I think it would be to not be afraid to do it. And I think that you forget, because I'm not I would never of a million years have imagined that I would put myself in a position where I'd have 1.2 million followers on Instagram. Because I would never have seen myself as the sort of person that would put enough of myself into it to do it, because I'm too shy. So I would just say, no matter your age, no matter what you are, if you put yourself into it and you want it, then you give yourself an opportunity to achieve it. And it is so much about yourself, I think, growing on these accounts. It is genuinely being true to your point and your point of view and your passion. And if you've got it, then you should try it. And I'm always at influencer events with grey hair and, young people in crop tops. And, I don't know, that I really love it. I love meeting them all and being part of it. And they include me.
For that same person who does follow your advice, they go for it. And maybe it doesn't, catch lightning right away. Maybe you might have some steady growth, or you might have some times where it doesn't seem like anyone's paying attention. What is your advice, your final advice for those people on how to get through that?
Yeah, and I think even when you have got a big following, you go through lulls in Instagram or social media where you go through the ebbs and the flows. And I think, so when you are starting out, I think that it is, it's hard. And you do feel like you aren't being seen and you aren't being noticed. And I feel that if you can find a group of like-minded people, so you are engaging on the apps with people who at least share a similar passion or interest, and you're building a community, your community will help you through the times that come and that are hard.
Like maybe the cliche goes, you have to enjoy the process and find a way to enjoy the journey and enjoy what you're creating. And it can't all just be about likes or number of comments or monetization or all those things. If you truly enjoy it and get something out of it, just the act of participating in it, that can maybe sustain you too.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that maybe that's what comes through I love creating my content. I love my niche. I love the effect it brings on people. And I really, really, really love creating it. I love waiting for those moments, and I love putting them together. It just brings me so much joy. So aged 50, but then aged 50, I suddenly found something that I really, really loved doing.
Well, it's an inspiring story. Sarah Laming, A Home to Make You Smile. Check her out on Instagram with 1.2 million other people, on TikTok, and also with the book Relaxed Maximalism coming out this fall in the US, in the UK, and around the world. Thank you so much for joining us, and keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to my weekly doses of, I guess I would say, British Zen with a touch of whimsy, something like that. I don't know if that exists, but that's what it is for me. Thank you so much, Sarah Laming.
Thank you, Ben. It was a pleasure.